Well, happy weekend, people. Uh, yeah, the last video I think brought us to about here or something like that with these colors. I wanted to bring this side up to here because, you know, there is no large area that may be partly dry tomorrow morning that I will have to fudge into, you know, that I'll have to feather into. I wanted to minimize that. If you know you're not going to work on something until the next day, then try to minimize the border between the wet and the dry paint. So that's it. That's the border. I was able to bring it there, and I can match that perfectly and move on tomorrow, moving this way. I put a smudge of paint on here earlier while I had my knife loaded for this. I laid it on there, then I scraped it off and gave it a wipe with a bit of toilet paper. But the color's there, so I already have a color swatch exactly where I want to start when I go here. So that's given me a guide for tomorrow. So anyway, that's why I did that. Really not that necessary, but it doesn't hurt. Yeah, I may be a little silly considering I'm planning on having a fairly red cabin here to go in with orange. It takes a bit of the drama away, but you know, on the other hand, it'll probably work out okay. This is a fairly large area, certainly with the technique that I'm using for painting. Rather than just continuing on to the left-hand side, running out of steam for the day, and then having to revisit it tomorrow when there are certain areas that will be somewhat drier or have a skin on them or what have you, I decided to just work on this, complete it, make this area as good as I can make it, at least for the time being. If I add highlights later, that's fine, but at least I'm very happy with the way it sits. I had a tree here, very thin one. Yeah, thin or thick, didn't matter. I left it. Eventually I got rid of it after looking at it for a while because it was just an unnecessary detail. And unnecessary detail is, well, the other word for it is just a distraction. It's not helpful, you know. So I did away with that. And I, you know, here too I've brought in some of these oranges, which, by the way, these are not cadmiums. This is just yellow ochre and some alizarin crimson. You know, and I brought it up to here, but you know, sitting back and looking at it, I thought, oh no, I need to bring it to the other side as well. So I just put a few strokes in there. I've gone all over the area and laid in just a few strokes. Some areas to tame it down, other areas to make it stronger. Same principle as with the sky, you know, only here it's more dramatic, of course, because it's not the sky. It's a more important area. It's a very important area, even though it's not foreground. We need to try to make a bit of a design, you know, poke a couple of little tendrils of bush heading up in this direction. This as well, you know. I may include a little more orange. I've put a little cadmium. I've used a little cadmium orange up here. I may end up introducing a bit of that, you know, maybe a stroke or two down here or something. I don't know yet, and I don't have to decide that yet. So I guess, you know, actually on this painting I'm working true to the tradition of working from the distance forward. So I guess what I'll do is just start here. And again, you know, I'm not using, where are you, old knife? I'm not using this knife that I used in the sky. I'm using this knife because I can carve around, see the shape of the tip and the slight size difference. I can carve around my branches and tree trunks much better with this one. So that's, you know, this is the knife I'm using, the little one, as I carve around all these trees and the shed, you know, and what have you. So I'm going to continue with that. What I'm also going to have to still do is or what I'd like to do, is reestablish a few of the lines that I've smudged over and broken into. Not for the majority of the area, really only in our focal area, right? Because that's where we want our lines to be. Well, they don't have to be necessarily that sharp, but they have to be very distinct, vivid. Okay, so we'll start playing. Carving in around these branches. It's funny, you know, because right now what I'm working with is just red sienna and yellow ochre. You know, you can't see it on the screen right now, but where I have laid in cadmium orange, it almost looks as strong, but that's because the cadmium orange is way off to the left. And you know, of course, it's really all about what you're setting in next to each other. It's about the adjacency of the colors that you're using. So this looks very orange. However, once the painting is in place, once the colors are in place, it's not going to look that way anymore. And I'm trying to maintain this kind of arc heading, well, up from right to left, I guess. I was going to say down from left to right, but it's really the other way around. It's a bit dangerous here. I've really got to be kind of watching how high my values and chromas are right now. I'm going to have to introduce a bit of purple pretty soon here, or the high values are going to get away on me, and I'm not going to be able to create any drama. Unless, of course, my wife leaves me for another man, and I break down and cry and do dramatic, silly things on the screen. Which, well, it's not the plan though. So there's that. So yeah, okay, let's actually do that. Let's mix a little yellow ochre, a little bit of alizarin crimson, a little bit of white. Go into some purples, not dark purples, but just to kind of knock a little bit of this intensity of color down a little bit. Just sort of, I guess I would call it trying to stay in control of the painting. I know it's not a race car, but it's easy enough to forget what you're doing. And then 20 minutes after you should have, you back up and you look at your painting and you go, oh my goodness, why did I not look at that more closely? Okay. Let's see here. No, that's too up there in the values. That's not going to help anybody.
Now I kind of need to intentionally leave some of the tint showing on the canvas. Just to keep consistent with the rest of the painting. You know, I watched a video that I did yesterday, I think, and I misspeak often. Sometimes I talk about, yellow ochre, or I think I mentioned something about yellow ochre when in fact what I was talking about was ultramarine blue. I hope you can forgive me for that. I'm dividing my attention between painting and talking, and I think I've mentioned before that walking and chewing gum has never been my strong point, so I'm certainly going to screw up. But in general, I hope you understand what I'm saying. Okay, that's good. It has life to it. That's really kind of the main thing. Keep adding a little bit of yellow ochre here. Well, let's see. What's that? That's not too bad. I think that's going to work for us. Funny, you know, when you're painting adjacent to all these darker colors, I keep thinking to myself, am I going too light? Am I going too light? Because I often make the mistake of going too light, too early. But again, the benefit of backing up is you back up and you say, oh no, it's just because it's against the dark colors that it looks so light. But I can bring it way lighter than what I've got it right now. Just haven't done that yet, that's all. Whoops. Get some junk in there. Okay, while I have that color, maybe I'll lay a bit of that in there too. You know, the little paint swatch. For reference. Yep. Actually, I like that. I like that color in general for that area. So maybe what I'll do is just fill in that little spot and call it painted. Where am I? Oh yeah, I am standing right in front of you. Sorry about that. Okay. Once again, I think that's headed in the right direction. So, let's just keep that up. Well, I felt that if I videoed all this, I would be sending people into a coma out of boredom. So I just went ahead and painted the back bush, the bush in the back here.
It still hasn't got all the highlights back in there, but that's okay. I want it to stay subdued for the moment. You know, changed a couple things on this tree, made it a little more detailed, some of the branches a little bit more. Added a little bit of, I didn't even realize I had this kicking around, but when I was looking for the Prussian blue, I came across a few tubes of Cad Yellow Deep, which I really like. I often use Cad Yellow Deep and Cad Pale. I thought I was out of Cad Yellow Deep, but yeah, Cad Yellow Deep and Cad Yellow Pale with some titanium white for my very highlightiest of highlights on an autumn scene. Those colors will show up on here eventually. So I just went with Cad Yellow Deep and just a hint of white, just in a few spots, just to bring a little bit of sparkle here and there. I may put a bit here, maybe not. More likely than not, I will not, because we're going to have our attention down here, and we want to, you know, this is sort of more open space here. We want to see more of that distant bush here. Here we'd like it to be a little bit more ignored. So now I'm sort of faced with the, still a bit of a dilemma in my mind, is this blob and this blob. I don't want a blob on each end of the painting. At least if that's how it's going to be, they have to be very different from each other. So that means that this catches quite a bit more light, or this catches quite a bit more light. I haven't decided which side yet. It also means I might possibly lower this bush. It's encroaching on the same height as that one, so I might even just lower it. That would do the trick as well. That's another way around it. I like the idea of not having this totally in the dark, because I'd like light to catch these trunks and spill out onto these rocks a little bit, you know? So that means that odds are these trees here will be subdued, toned down a little bit. Alright, I'll keep playing. Okay, we're nice and zoomed in here. I thought, well, why not paint the fence? My back is tired from standing up, so I thought I'd play on this, get this in. First thing I'm going to do is paint where the shadows are. So, a little bit of cobalt blue, and a little bit of cobalt blue is nice and cold. Mix it with a little bit of raw umber. Excuse me. And set that in there. Well, first I should decide exactly where that's going, I guess. Okay, the sun is reasonably high in the sky yet. Because our roof has a pitch on it, the fence is midway the shed, so our shadow line is going to be something like this. Okay. Let's just call that our first decision. It's a little dark still. Still a little dark. That. I think that's going to work. Okay. Keep our angle going right down to the
base of this tree. All right. Vary our colors a little bit. We'll go actually some pretty strong blue there. This is where I stop breathing. Now, this tree is on the other side of the fence, as I explained before. This trunk is on this side of the fence, but it's growing right up against the fence because I don't want this tree with the dark and light side and then having the light come behind the dark side and then have a shadow, you know, and then go back to light again. That's a lot of unnecessary vertical strokes on a fence that is made of more or less vertical strokes. Let me just fix that line. But that shadow is not quite going to touch the bottom of the tree. It's above it. Okay, so our tree casts a little bit of a shadow on the fence right there. Just a bit. That's enough. And none of the foliage is you know, the sun is at enough of an angle, that where the shadow of the foliage above lands will be behind the fence. I'm waving my hand and pointing everywhere. And then I realize you can't see any of that because I've got the camera so zoomed in. Okay, now I'm going to make another little pile. And we're going to go almost straight raw umber. Because I don't want cold colors where direct sunlight is hitting it. That doesn't make sense. And okay, I think I can add a little more white to that. And I'm just going to touch it, touch it with touch my pile with a little bit of yellow ochre. No, I don't want two slats showing there. I'm just gonna keep it simple. Really trying to be careful not to overload the knife at this time. Because before you know it, you got a mess on your hands. And this is kind of a fussy area. Okay, I've already kind of made a bit of a boo there. I went outside the lines. It's not the worst thing. Really not the worst thing, but if I can avoid it, I will. So I just put my dark line back in there. Okay. I don't want that trunk to be razor straight. All right. That fence a little dirtier towards the bottom. Because that's what old fences do. The water wicks up from below and the wood rots at the bottom pretty quickly. Should not worry too much about painting all the individual slats. That's not a great idea. Okay. Replenish my pile a little bit here. A little more umber. You know, if you were to make a piece of fence like this, or to paint a piece of fence like this, and you were to have a dark line for every single slat, you would have a very monotonous, uninteresting fence. If your game is Impressionism. Even a realist won't always do that. It's just unnecessary details. Like I said, I never thought highly of them. Okay. A little bit of blemish here and there. That's a good thing. I'm not going to paint any knots in it because that's another unnecessary detail, as interesting as they are. That fence is too far away for us to pick up that stuff. Whew. Okay. Now, in front of this fence, this grass is going to be catching quite a bit of light. So I think what we can afford to do is I'm going to take a little yellow ochre and mix it with some raw umber, and now I'm going to put in a lot of white. Because yes, you know, actual sunlight, whether it's old wood or not, that picks up a lot of light. Yes, I'm going over what I just painted. That was too dark, and now I'm making it lighter. That was intentional. Had I not started with dark, and I know I'm painting wet and wet, but had I not started with the dark, it would look quite different. It just has a little, to me, it has a fuller feel to it. Just a bit richer, even if you're going wet and wet. Should I even paint the very dark areas there? You know, I'm of two minds. But the part of my mind that says no, or the one mind that says no, I'm going to let it win, and I'm just going to leave it. Okay, now, even where the shadow is, it's a little too dark. I don't like that. It's, as long as it stays blue, it can get lighter. And that's what I'm going to do. Just a few spots. Obliterate that line a little bit. Okay, let me back the camera out, and that will help you see it in more context. Excuse the jiggling, please. Okay, so now you have the feeling, the beginning of the feeling that there is some sunlight splashing on and around parts of that fence and the shed. Sorry, I keep calling it a cabin. It's just a shed, an old shed. Okay, that's it for now. I'm going to keep painting, but I'm going to stop for now so that I can get this video uploaded before the day is completely over. See you soon.